So we styled the header section. Now we're going to move on to the main section. This is our main section. It has an image, an H2, and a paragraph. The image you can't see because we haven't provided a link. So this is the H2 and this is the paragraph. Now if you notice, all our sections have an H2 and a paragraph. All right, even the portfolio and about have a heading and a paragraph. Even theme, heading paragraph, even contact, heading paragraph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some simple styling for all headers and paragraphs. So let's do that. So just here, before we start with the header, I'm going to set this as a comment. This is all header stuff. And this is general stuff, right? So right here in the general stuff, what I'm going to write is I'm going to set something. I'm going to create a set of styles, and this set of styles is going to be called section heading, right? And this will be created right here is called a class. Now a class is a set of styles that we can apply to several elements on a page, right? So first of all the headings I'm going to say are going to have a color of some sort of light gray. So I'm going to say color, RGBA. This is one way of saying specifying colors. So I'm going to say red is going to be 0, green is going to be 0, and blue is going to be 0. I'm going to set the brightness to 0.5, and I save that. But right now you won't see anything because we haven't applied this class to any of the elements on the page. So just like we apply IDs, we would apply headings. We will apply this class to all the H2s. So let me select all the H2s on this page. There's going to be one at main, right? There's going to be one at about, and one at portfolio, one at theme, and one at contact. Great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write inside all of them class is equal to section heading. And if I save this, you can see all the headings have a gray color now. Great. Let's add a little more style to the section heading class. Other than the color, what I want to do is I want to keep all these texts to the center of the page. There we go. Now the headings are on the center. So the same way we did this, you also notice that every section has a heading. Other than that, it has a paragraph like this one and this one. This one, this one. Portfolio has a paragraph. So does theme and contact. So let's do the same thing for that. So we'll call this, let's say, section description, let's say, right? Inside this, we'll say text align center. And we'll apply this class to all the paragraphs just after the H2. So let's do that. So there's going to be one here in our main, right? There's going to be another one in the about section. Actually, let's do this individually because they're not all together. So we'll say class is equal to, we'll say section description, and we'll copy this and paste it wherever we want that to happen. So now everything that has a class of description will be aligned to the center. So we don't want these paragraphs to be in the center. We'll get to that later. this paragraph in the portfolio section should be in the center. So should this one in team, and even this one in contact. If I save this now, you'll see that all of our paragraphs are even aligned to the center. Great. Now this main. Okay. We have an image, right? But it doesn't show. So let's import that image first. I have a couple of images in here, and I have one wallpaper called main.jpg. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to say images and look for main.jpg and save that. There. Now we get the entire image inside the web page. Of course, this doesn't look that nice because we have to size this up properly. And even the text is right here, but we want this. Let's bring this text to the center of this web page, right? A couple of things we want to do. So let's come down here and we'll say main, and let's target this main section first. Now what we'll actually do is we'll target the image. We'll say image. We want the image inside the main section to have a width of 100 viewport width. The viewport is the width of the window. And we'll have a height of about 500 pixels. And we'll say object fit. We'll say cover. Save this. And you can see that this spans the whole viewport and it has a height of 500 pixels. Great, this looks better. Now, we want to place this heading and this text inside or actually over this image. So for that, let's make a division called main content just after the image. We'll open it and move both these H2s, both the H2 and the paragraph inside this div, and then we'll position this div over the image. And this has a class of main content, so let's do that. So we'll say, let's call this class .main content, and now we're going to be applying some position related properties. This might be confusing for you. You don't need to get to know it too much. We'll get to that in CSS, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to first say that this main position is relative to its actual position where it's at. I'm going to set this position for the main content, which is inside the main, to be absolute. You don't need to understand this. Just remember. I'm going to push this down 50%. I'm going to set it top 50%, meaning I'm going to push it from the top 50% down. I'm going to set it from the left side to 50% right, left 50%, right? Save that. You can see that now it appears over the image, but it's not exactly in the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform, translate, minus 50%, minus 50%. What this does is, transform translate is it pulls an element from its center. Great, that's what it looks like. And now we'll set the background color of this thing. Because we can't actually see it properly, we'll set the background color to a light white. So we'll say background color 255. That's RGB maxed out values. Will give you a blue color. we'll give you a white color, and we'll set this to 0.8. There, that looks better. But as you can see, this is very close to each other, so I'm going to set a padding on this main content to 20 pixels. Let's see. That should be fine. And this is too sharp at the corner, so I'm going to set a border radius of this class. Border radius 3 pixels. Save that. There we go. This looks better. It looks nice. Right. Now this is too close to each other, so let's bring this main contents h2. Let's put some space between this. So we'll say that look for the h2 inside any element that has the class of main content. That's what we're saying right here. We'll say margin, the margin at the bottom of this h2 will be 20 pixels. I'll save this, and there we go. Now we have a margin. Before it was very close up next to each other. Now it looks better. Great. Now you can see that all these sections, we have the main, we have the about, we have the portfolio, theme, and contact. All of these sections are very close to each other. We want to put some gap between them. All right. So let's come back here and we'll say the main section, any section, even the footer, should all have a margin top of 50 pixels. Right? Let me save this. And now you can see that this one's top margin has 50 pixels gap. So does portfolio. And everything else. Great, this looks a lot nicer. We'll also set the width to 100% of the viewport width. Right? Save that. Now you can see that we have this set to a full width of the viewport, but we end up with a very small annoyance that we have a scroll bar. Because this scroll bar pops up, you know, we actually miss part of this much. We miss this much of the width of the page. Because of that, we have a scroll bar at the bottom in which we can do this. We can scroll because of this scroll bar. So we can try and avoid this. We can overcome this by simply saying body. The entire body of the page will have an overflow of X. The overflow on the X-axis, that is the horizontal axis, will be hidden. There. That looks good. But we have another problem now. You can see that text gets covered up in each of these instances. So we don't want text to exactly stretch all over the place. We'll actually keep text within a certain boundary of this browser. So we'll create something called a container. The container is just another class, and we'll set this width to be 1080 pixels, whatever. Set the margin to auto so that the container is always in the center of the page. And then we set the padding Actually, let me just save this and tell you what happens. So the main is sorted out. We're moving on to the about section. As you can see, it wraps to the edges of the page. Let's bring this in together. Inside the about section, we have an H2 and a paragraph, and what we'll do is we'll create a division with the container class, and we'll put the entirety of the section inside the container class. Now when we say that the container has a width of 1080 pixels and it has a margin of auto, when we set something to margin of auto, it's going to center it on the page, right? My screen resolution is much higher than 1080, so you'll see that we actually condense this about section into a smaller space, and which looks nicer. So let me save this and show you what happens. There you go. Now the entire about section is inside a container which is 1080 pixels wide. These are CSS pixels, do not confuse them with actual physical hardware pixels, okay? This is 1080. Great, this looks better. And if I inspect this, you'll see that this is the container. The orange section is the margin, and the blue section is the content. And inside the content, you can see this. I'm hovering over the container, and you can see that the content goes directly right to the edge of, right to the edge of the element, meaning there's no space between the blue and the text. So let's provide some padding to this. There you go. Now the green section is the padding. Now you can see we have an about in here. In this about section, we have a paragraph. Let's say we want this paragraph, we want one line to be normal text and one line to be in bold. So let's do that. Just delete some text, make it smaller. Span. And here's this. Then I can come to about and say I want the span of the about section. I'm targeting the about ID, that means this one, and the span inside the about section, which is this one, is going to be in bold. So I'm going to say font weight is bold. There we go. But it's not on the next line. So what I'll do is I'll put a break line over here. So we'll see. There we go. That looks nice. Now, the next section inside the about is this division that contains the three boxes, which is web development, UI, UX, and SEO, SMM. We'll give this main division, right, a class of services, right? And then we'll target the services class. We'll say dot services, margin top will be 50 pixels, meaning we're going to give a gap between this section and this last paragraph, which is in bold. top, 50 pixels. What's wrong with this? There we go, now we have a gap. Let's set the padding of this to be, the padding's fine. We'll say, okay, we want all these boxes to be side by side, just like how it is in here. You can see these boxes are side by side. We're going to create a class called flex. And we're going to put we're going to say display will be flex. We'll say justify content space between, and we'll say align items center. And right here in our header, we won't need this. Instead of having this written so many times, that's why I'm creating a class, so I can take this class and apply it to different elements, because I want the same thing that we have in the header section. I want to put that out in a separate class. So I'm just going to comment this out, and I'm going to say the header is going to have a class of flex. If the header has a class of flex, great. Now I can also say that the services section will also have a class of flex. So I don't have to write this over and over and over again. Whenever I want to use flex, I can just say class is equal to flex. And as you can see, since I applied this flex, this group of styles called flex, to our services box, you can see that all our divisions, all our boxes inside here have also come up side to side. Great. We'll continue this in a bit.